Alright, I'm just going to go over this question for setting up a standard deviation table manually and calculating manually using Excel. For those of you who have forgotten how to do it. So we've got this table of bivariate data. We're going to find the mean and standard deviations of each variable separately. That comes in handy when we need to calculate the correlation coefficient later, which I'll also do. Okay, so I've just started setting up a table here. So we've got our x values vertically, they're the same as the x values there. I've got my y values vertically, same as those ones. Now I've set up title x minus x bar, remembering that x bar is the symbol for the mean for these x values. And y minus y bar, so it's this value minus the mean for these y values. And then x minus x bar squared, all squared, y minus y bar all squared. So we're going to go ahead and calculate each one of these. So the first things first, we need to find the mean of the x values and the mean y bar of the y values. So we can do that by saying, calculating the sum, so equals sum of selecting these values. And then we can do the same for y. We can either say do it again and select them, or we can simply drag across. Okay, now the sample size, we can either just count them and add the value, or we can say equals count of those values. Now, because it's bivariate data, the sample size is going to be the same for both, because data comes in pairs. Alright, now x bar, the mean, is equal to sum of values. If you have a look at this equation here, sum of data values divided by number of data values. So the sum of data values we've calculated for x to be 35, and the divide symbol, the number of data values is n. Enter. So we can go ahead and do that again for y by saying that divided by that, or we can simply drag across. So they are our means. Okay, now going up here, so x minus x bar. For each of these x values, we need to subtract the x bar value. Okay, so up here we can do the first one equals 2 minus 5, enter. Now, we can't just simply drag this down, because remembering B13 is the value we want for all of these. We want to subtract B13. But if we just drag without doing a special trick, notice how it goes to B14, B15, B16. So I'm just going to clear those. And I'm going to click on that. And the first thing I'm going to do is, if I go $ in front and a $ between the letter and the number, enter. Now if I drag, you'll see that it stays as B13. But the first number, the x value, changes. So B3, B4, B5, B6, but this number stays the same. Okay, so y minus y bar, we can do the first one, y minus, we've got to find y bar. Okay, so we've got the sum of values, we've got n, y bar is equal to the sum divided by the number. I just put it in the wrong place, so I had calculated it. Alright, so now I'm just going to bold that. Actually, we don't need that there. Okay, So now y minus y bar, so we've got equals that minus y bar. Now again, we can't just simply drag down straight away. First thing we have to do is add our dollar signs here to fix the cell. Okay, now we can drag. Alright, so x minus x bar squared is just that value squared. So we go equals that, and we do the upside down V symbol for square, and 2. Okay, so as you can see, negative 3 squared is 9. Now, because we're now looking at that value squared, then that value squared, because we want the value to change, we can just drag down without having to do anything. So as you see, that's d3 squared, d4 squared, so it's grabbing the new value each time we go down. Okay, so y minus y bar squared, we want this value squared, so we go equals that upside down v squared. Okay, now we can simply drag that down. Alright, so if we have a look at this equation here, we want the sum for standard deviation. If we were just looking at the x variable, the standard deviation is x minus x bar. The sum of x minus x bar squared, all divided by n minus 1. So what that means, it's the sum of these values, x minus x bar squared. So what we can do here, in the sum column, we can go equals sum of those values, and we can simply drag across, because now it'll be getting the sum of the G3 to G9. Alright, so that's correct so far. Now, for your standard deviation calculation, you need to put this formula in. Okay, so it equals the square root SQRT, open brackets, we want the sum of x bar, we're doing a standard deviation, sample standard deviation to x, so we want this sum divided by, now you could either type in 6, because n minus 1 equals 6, or you put in brackets 7 minus 1. Now you might want to do that if you've got a heap of data and you don't want to be bothered counting it. Okay, so just to keep it simple, I'm going to do it again, but you would need to, there's probably no point worrying about the dollar signs for this because it's simple enough. So equals the square root of this divided by n minus 1, close brackets. Okay, so these are the actual answers that we can check. If you want to make this correct to 2 decimal places, you can right-click Format Cells, Number, and make it 2 decimal places. Okay, and that shows that we have the correct answers.